Okay, mariposas, it's time for the video you've all been waiting for. Today, I'm gonna tell you all about how you can make money as a social media manager in 2023. This is the no shortcuts, leads-free way to build a foundation for a thriving business and bank account. Because I'm sure you've seen a lot of chatter online about how lucrative social media management can be, and it is true. There is a lot of opportunity in the digital landscape, but I don't want you to walk away today thinking that this is an overnight six figures kind of thing, because it's not. As with anything, it takes some time and consistency. And I know this because I've been there. And after 5 years of experience, I have learned a lot, and I've made a lot of mistakes too. Luckily, you don't have to make those same mistakes because I'm about to walk you through exactly how I got to where I am today as far as pricing. So save this video to your favorites playlist because you're gonna need to refer to it later. You will want to remember this stuff. Let's start with this. Determining when to charge an hourly rate, a project rate, or by month. Now, I want to start by saying this is all completely up to you, and you will have to do your own research to decide which method works best for your business. But here are my thoughts and experience on all three of these options. First, let's start with charging an hourly rate. This method can take some of the guesswork out of composing a quote and ensures that you're paid for all the things that often could get overlooked when charging by project. Things like the time you spent on the phone, talking with your customer about what you're going to provide, or if the project took you more time than you initially anticipated, because hint, hint, this happens often. When you charge by the hour, you make sure that you get paid for all of it. Easy peasy, right? Not so much. The tricky thing about charging on an hourly basis though, is that you need to be super diligent about logging the time spent working on a project. If you end up spending more time on this project than you thought, this can often lead to tricky and awkward conversations with your client. Lastly, you will have to determine your hourly rate. This can often be the hardest part. Everyone's hourly rate is going to be different, and that's because you will need to do the research based on where you are and then combine that with your skill set. This will help to make your rate specific to your region and your level of experience. So where do you start? Okay, you're gonna wanna hop on Google and start to see what other junior level social media managers or marketing assistants are making per year in your area. I'm gonna recommend that you cross-reference several different sources, like 3 to 5, to be able to get a good idea of what does this position really make in your area on an average yearly rate. So then what you're gonna do is this, you're gonna take that average rate and you're gonna divide it by 2,080. That's because that's the amount of hours it would be for a full-time person per year. So let's do an example of this. Let's say it's $30,000 a year divided by 2080. That gives you roughly $14.42 per hour. But I do recommend that you buff this hourly rate a little bit, and here's why. As an entrepreneur, you don't get benefits or insurance like you would at a regular salaried position. Also, depending on your tax classification, you may have to pay self-employment taxes. So be reasonable about this, but don't overlook the expenses that come from running a business. Once again, this is just an example, but you're going to take what you make, divide it by 2080, and that gives you a rough estimate of what your hourly rate should be. As a side note, if you see this rate and you're not totally happy with it, don't worry. It's just a guideline. You can ask for more. Just be prepared to justify that rate to your client, and keep in mind that the market sets the price. If you find that people are consistently saying no, then at that point you should look to adjusting it because it's too high. The market is setting the price. Also know that your rate can and should change as you gain experience and expertise. If you go this route, make sure that you sit down and reevaluate your rate often, at least on a yearly basis. The other issue with the hourly rate is that it can actually work against you in some cases, and let me explain. Let's say that you're really good at doing something and you get really fast at it. Like you're able to do this task very efficiently. But when you charge by the hour, you are potentially minimizing your skill set. Just because something took you 15 minutes to do it doesn't account for the fact that there's probably countless hours that you've spent to allow you to become that efficient at this task. But the client doesn't necessarily know or care because their structure is by the hour. Just something to think about. Now, before I move on to the next option, I should mention that I actually already have a free guide for you that dives into all of this money stuff, plus tells you all about the other things that you need to do to build a solid foundation for your social media business. Like, it's literally everything that you need to get started all in one place. It's actually linked in the description of this video, and yes, I promise it's yours totally free. Go get yours now. Okay, so let's jump into the next option, charging by project. Here's the nice thing about charging by project. You don't have to log all the hours spent working on the project. You have to estimate what the entire cost will be up front. This lump cost, of course, will change depending on the service, and once again, that will require some market research on your part. You have to see what others are charging for similar projects, and then you compose a general average, and then whatever that number is, pad it a little bit. Why pad it, you wonder? Well, I can't tell you how many times I wound up spending more time and resources on a project than I originally anticipated, and then wound up with a payout that didn't reflect that extra time and effort at all. Adding some buffer dollars to your project rate is a good idea because unforeseen challenges will arise. So anticipate them before the project begins so you don't have to eat that cost after. And this will also prevent you from a really uncomfortable and awkward client interaction. Okay, so the next thing you're gonna do once you've padded it a little, you're gonna pad it a little bit more. Of course, I encourage you to exercise your best judgment and be reasonable about this. Don't go asking for an extra $1,000 just to see if the client will buy it. That's misguided and honestly just a really great way to burn a bridge with a potential long-term client. So don't do that. Here's what you do instead. When you send your client a quote for a project via email, let them know that you're willing to be flexible on the rate, but also be firm. I know you're like, that doesn't make any sense. Here's what this could sound like. You could say, I've determined this rate after thorough market research and I acknowledge my own work ethic. I'm willing to discuss this rate, however, in greater detail if you have any questions. Something along those lines. And if they don't like the rate, okay, well, they'll try to negotiate it down a bit, which is not a big deal because you've already padded it. And if they don't ask any questions, well, they don't ask any questions. And guess what? You just got yourself a brand new client at a very reasonable rate. Go you. Now, keep in mind that your rates can be as rigid or as fluid as you want them to be. If there's a client you really want to work with, but they don't have the budget for your rate, you can always offer to do a smaller scale version of the project. But also know that if you're the kind of person who has a hard time saying no, even when their budget is way below what you're asking, like a certain colorful entrepreneur and YouTuber that I know, you'll have to overcome this as you gain experience because at some point you will need to focus your energy on higher paying projects. The most important part about determining your project rate for a client is you have to make sure that you thoroughly understand their needs long before the project even starts. You need to have a very clear idea of what is the client asking you to do and what are they paying you for before you begin to work on this project. Make sure that you ask tons of questions in the initial phone calls and meetings to compose a comprehensive creative brief of sorts. Nothing fancy, just something that has all the information in one place. Make sure you send that creative brief to the client in writing and ask them to approve what they see to make sure that you are on the same page. I say this for two reasons. If you are unclear about the scope of the project, your client's expectations will be different from yours, and you will either over-deliver or under-deliver, and neither is what you want. Over-delivery and going the extra mile is good when it's done on purpose, but not when it just happens by accident. Next, there will come a time when you and the client have agreed on something, and let's say it's 3 different tasks or services you'll provide, but later down the line, they're gonna come back and ask for a 4th task to be completed that's outside of the original agreement. When this happens, you're gonna wanna have something that you can gracefully refer back to let the client know that that was not in the original agreement. And this creative brief or quote is what you will refer to. This will remind them, and trust me when I say, you will thank yourself later for making sure that they approved it. Now, here is one downside to charging by project. You have to make sure that you are logging all of your hours properly so that you can produce a system that can make you money over time. Here's what I know about service-based businesses. It's really hard to quantify how long something takes. Therefore, it's hard to quantify what you're actually making as far as the money is concerned. If you don't know how many hours it takes takes, how do you know how to repeat the process? How do you know how to repeat this product? You see, it can get really cloudy. Okay, now on to option number 3, charging by month. So this option is a great offer in terms of fostering long-term client relationships. Why is this? Well, because you can get this client to buy a long-term contract. Think 6 months, 12 months to secure this revenue for your business. Every business owner is different. Some only want social media marketing assistance for one project. Others may only want your expertise for a specific, very limited amount of time. Not every client wants the same. But there's also a lot of business owners who are willing to pass their social media marketing responsibilities off to you indefinitely. And those are the last clients you want to turn away. Why? Because they trust you and then they want to continue trusting you. Plus, it's highly likely that those clients you work for a limited amount of time will enjoy working with you and they'll want to grow and they'll need your help on a more consistent basis. Their needs will increase, and guess what? Over time, you can upsell them into new products as you learn as well. For these clients, monthly is the way to go. And as with previous options, whatever you charge on a monthly basis is going to depend on your work ethic, your experience level, your region, and your client's objectives. You're going to have to do some research. While one client may need you to just manage their Instagram account on a monthly basis, another might ask for your help with Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. This will vary by client. The amount of work you pour into one platform is going to be vastly different from a client who needs, let's say, 3 platforms, for example. So gauge their needs. Do some thorough market research and see what other businesses are charging. And yes, this means you'll probably need to hop on the phone and talk to a real person in real time to get accurate quotes. Next, examine your own work ethic and turnaround times. Be realistic about how much work you can take on, and then use all of that information to compose a monthly rate that is reasonable and accounts for unforeseen circumstances. Whew, okay, YouTube, so that was a lot. And honestly, this topic could be easily spread into 2 separate videos. So let me know in the comments, and make sure that you like this video if you want to see a part 2, where I go into an even deeper dive about all of this information. Maybe I can explain more about how taxes work as a freelancer or business owner, or how to compose packages and then price them. I can also do a deep dive into how to compose and track invoices, or go into detail about how to just create a proposal. Let me know what you want to see, and you have my word, I will create content according to the greatest needs. And as always, thank you for tuning in. Make sure that you subscribe to this channel. We hope that this video provided you with genuine value, and we continue to create a lot more on a weekly basis. Right now, I see a lot of advice floating around on the internet, and a lot of it is just words and no action. That's not what we do here at Mariposa University. We are here to help you take real steps toward owning a social media business. And if that excites you as much as it excites me, make sure you come back next week for another super valuable video. Until next time, bye friends.